poppin' people? It's your boy Bone back again with another episode. And today we're gonna talk about bass and their eyeballs. Specifically, how they use their eyeballs in nature in general and how they use their eyeballs to find and eat our bait. Well, find and track down our bait. They use their mouth to eat it, but you get what I'm saying. So starting off, bass eyes don't have eyelids, so they can't put shades on and take shades off or blink at all. They can't do that. So naturally, if you can't blink, what you're naturally gonna do is try to find something to cover your eyes that is already in the environment. So like a tree stump, a tall tree, rocks, a big rock you can hide behind, depending on which angle the sun is at. Grass, you might wanna nestle down in grass. A boat dock, probably the most obvious one. But this is what bass do, this is how they think, this is how they hunt. They not only use those areas to cover their eyes, they also use those areas to hide and ambush prey as well. So that's why you see a lot of people fishing around those different types of cover, trees, grass, docks, rocks, all that. So bass can't blink. Another thing bass eyes cannot do is see 5 different colors in your bait. They can mainly see 2 colors, red and green. Everything else is hues and contrast, that's it. Like for example, if I got a bait that's black and blue, the bass is not gonna see black and blue. They're gonna see dark and a lighter dark, pretty much. But that contrast is also what attracts them to the bait, and that's what you want if you're a bass fisherman, because you can't get them to eat it if they're not gonna come up to it. So there you go. Also, another example of that would be a white and chartreuse bait. They can't really differentiate between white and chartreuse. It's just bright and brighter, or more muted, bright, and then a louder bright. But together, which also again creates that contrast, which is another thing that attracts bass to it. So that's why a lot of times, if you're in darker water, you can start leaning more towards the chartreuse more than white, or chartreuse and white, because that chartreuse is gonna show up a little better in the darker water than white will. This is also why it's important to remember that you don't always have to match your trailer exactly with your bait. So like if you're fishing with a black and blue jig, that doesn't automatically mean you have to put a black and blue trailer on there too. You can create contrast and still look natural if you put like a green pumpkin or even a shad color trailer on there. The contrast is gonna help draw attention to the bait. That's all that is, but that's what you learn when you learn how bass see things, not just how we see things. This is going pretty bad today with the chopping of the chop block. These types of things are very important to understand, because it helps you, like when you in the store, you ain't gotta worry about all the different colors in your bait as if they're gonna matter, because they don't. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't. But the whole red and green thing is very key. That's why green pumpkin is so good. That's why watermelon red flake is so good. It's natural, and the bass naturally see green and red, or hues of green and red very well. So like that's why in the springtime or certain times of the year, you'll see people start to use fire crawl and stuff like that, because at certain times of the year, those different types of colorways just trigger bites. For whatever reason, we don't know, but we do know that they can see those types of hues better than everything else in the water pretty much. But also because of that, sometimes you'll see people, even myself, instead of throwing a fire crawl trailer with a fire crawl jackhammer, I'll throw a fire crawl jackhammer, but I'll put a green pumpkin trailer on the back of it, because that contrast, it looks good, they can see it well, and it works well together. Another good bright contrasting colorway is chartreuse blackback crankbait. That's another bait you can go to in dark conditions or muddy water conditions, because that chartreuse gives it the brightness, but the contrast with the black makes it shows up a lot better in the water as well. So these are all things you can use to your advantage when you get a different water and different water clarity, so you can know what to kind of throw. And to kind of help you spend less time in the tackle shop or online trying to decipher between different baits. Like if you got a green pumpkin base bait, but you really want a green pumpkin with some blue in it, you could easily substitute that with just having a green pumpkin jig and then adding the color with the trailer. You know what I mean? Like you can just use that to manipulate the bass eyes well enough for them to be attracted to it and eat it. So a lot of the stuff that we think we have to worry about, we really don't. So now we're gonna hop back into the studio so I can show y'all some examples of exactly what I mean. Okay, so let me give you a few examples of what I'm talking about with the color differences or the color, the hue, contrast, all that. So remember I talked about the chartreuse and black back crankbait, right? That's what this is right here. This is a good muddy water bait because you got the bright, which is pretty much gonna be very bright white in the water, and then the black back, which is gonna be black or dark in the water. And that contrast is good for muddy water and clear water if you're trying to get a reaction bite type of thing. I also talked about the fire crawl chatterbait, and that looks like this. And remember how I also talked about I don't always use a fire crawl trailer. I might use a green pumpkin trailer with my fire crawl. That's exactly what this is right here. The fire crawl represents the red and the green because that's what bass see most, red and green, or what their eyes identify with the most as far as actual color goes. So here's another example of the red and the green. Watermelon red flake worm. I don't know a bass fisherman that doesn't have a watermelon red flake bait, probably a worm and probably a creature bait. It's just kind of a bass fishing staple. And when you kind of dive deeper into the science behind it, you kind of know why. Then we talked about the chartreuse and white chatterbait versus just the solid white chatterbait. As you see here, you got the chartreuse and white versus just a solid white. Muddy water, I'm always gonna go chartreuse and white and muddy water just because, like we discussed, the chartreuse gonna show up a little bit better than the white, and that contrast kind of draws the bass in pretty much. And then we got the black and blue chatterbait. Remember how I was talking about how I don't always pair it with a black and blue trailer, and sometimes I use a shad color or a green pumpkin trailer. Here's an example with the shad color trailer on the back of it. Probably the biggest example of the contrast thing is this bait right here. This is the Bronco bug. See how that's like solid blue on one side and solid blue on one side and solid black on the other side? It's a perfect example of what I was talking about. This bait gets bit and stained to muddy water. Just throw this on, they gonna bite it straight up. But that point aside, like the contrast of it is very bold. It's a very bold contrast. So I'm assuming, I never talked to a bass to really know what they're talking about, but I'm assuming that this large contrast is part of what draws the bass's attention based on what we know about it, based on what biologists, marine biologists who know way more than me have said about it, studying bass behavior, and me fishing the bait myself, kind of just observing. So yeah, those are just some examples of what we talked about with the contrast and the color differences, what bass see, what they don't see, those type of things. So yeah, now let's head back out to the water. So yeah, man, just know that colors matter, but they don't matter as much as we as humans think they matter. They really only matter as far as how the bass see them. And there are different times of the year and different water conditions that will determine which actual color or hue that you use. But overall, what we think is important normally ain't important. So you ain't gotta sit there and just pick through each specific jig or piece of strand or speck. Like, it don't really matter, bruh. Like, is it flashy? Can they see it? Does it have good contrast? That's it. That's why a lot of times when I'm fishing a chatterbait, let's say I have a black and blue chatterbait, I won't fish a black and blue trailer with that chatterbait. I normally will fish some kind of shad color or a green pumpkin because I feel like bass can see that the best and I have good results with it. Like if I need to, if the water is super muddy, then I'll go ahead and do a one solid color that's all black, right? Like for example, Takahiro Omori, he has won multiple tournaments or placed in a lot of top 10s at minimum, and he has 2 baits on his deck. 2 chatterbaits. One is a white chatterbait, or white and chartreuse chatterbait with a very big boot tail trailer that's solid chartreuse, or a chartreuse chatterbait with a chartreuse trailer. Same boot tail trailer, but just on a chartreuse chatterbait instead of the white and chartreuse chatterbait or the white chatterbait. Those are the only 2 he has on his deck, and he catches them. Why? Because of the whole hue thing I was telling you about. Certain conditions, it's better for the fish to be able to react to things more that they can see. That's when he'll fish the all chartreuse joint. The other times where he just regular fishing, his default is just that white and that chartreuse trailer. So nothing in the water looks like that. You know what I mean? That's just the colors that we know the bass can see well because they don't see that as chartreuse, they see it as white. You feel me? So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for this episode. Real short and sweet. If you subscribe to the channel, thank you. If you're not, please hit that subscribe button. Or at least hit the like button, leave a comment to let me know what other kind of videos y'all wanna see me make, man. But until next time, get out there in the water. Y'all have a good one, and I'm out. Yee!